to Exodus 19, a nation married to Yah, with your host Richard Massey. I pray that you are having a blessed Sabbath, and I also pray that whatever you and your family are going through, that Yah gives you the strength to go through it. I want to talk again. This is going to be Genesis B. We want to continue on from last week, talking about the difference between the covenant and the law, showing when the covenant started and when the law started. And if you go back and look at Genesis from last week, the title Genesis, we show that so far, and I think we got up to Genesis 17, everything had to do with covenant. We showed that the law wasn't even in existence yet. And I think we want to continue that in today's lesson, that the law, even though it might be used periodically here and there, it hasn't started yet. Okay, so I don't know how much time this is going to take, so let's get started. We're going to go to Genesis 18. Genesis 18. And we're going to start at 16. Genesis 18:16. And it says, "And the men rose up from thence and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham with them to bring them on the way. And Adonai said, Shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation to all the nations of the earth, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him? For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, that they shall keep the way of Adonai, to do justice and judgment, that Adonai may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him." And when did he speak this? He spoke it first in Genesis 12, and then they made a covenant on it in Genesis 15. So that's what he spoke to him about. And Adonai said, "Because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sins is very grievous." So 19 is the one I really wanted to focus on, because these are the type of verses that you will read and you will skip right over what it says, because right now the topic is about Sodom and Gomorrah and the reason why Yah is going to do to them what they're going to do to them. But you're not, but I know what with me, I wasn't focusing on stuff like 19. It says, "For I know him, that he will command his children in his household after him, that they shall keep the way of Adonai." That's very important. The conversation that Adonai and Abraham has had in Genesis 12 and then in Genesis 15 is very important to Elohim. And again, this shows that the law has not even started yet. Yah wants us in a covenant fashion, not following the law. And again, the reason why I was saying the law was because I thought that the law started in Exodus 19, and that's where we were supposed to start as a nation for obedience. But we see that the covenant in Exodus 19 is where Yah had presented himself before the people. There was a covenant confirming meal there. There was a blood ratification there, and the people agreed to it. And if you read about the law, which happened 430 years after the covenant, it was never a meal concerning that law. It was never a blood ratification on the law, and the people never agreed to it. It was forced on them, and it was created because of the transgressions of the Israelites. Okay, so let's go to Genesis 19. And again, we're just walking through Genesis seeing what we can see, and just talking about some things. Genesis 19:1. And there came two angels to Sodom at evening, and Lot sat in the gate at Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, arose and rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face towards the ground. And he said, Behold, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early and go on your ways. And they said, Nay, we will abide in the streets all night. And he pressed upon them greatly. They turned unto and entered into his house, and he made them a feast, and he did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. The only thing that I'm going to point out is that before Leviticus and before Exodus, before the Passover, Lot made them unleavened bread. And these are just points to ponder. Did they make regular bread that rised? So these are things that you look over. Unleavened bread. Who cares about that? Well, Lot was already introduced to it back in Genesis 19. And then Yah uses the same procedure and the same type of baking in the Passover. And then he's asking it to carry on throughout the rest of the Bible, pretty much. Right? So that's the point I wanted to make there. That the Bible talks about the fact that Lot made them a feast. Why didn't it just stop right there? Why was it necessary to say that he did bake unleavened bread and they did eat? So this is showing you that this was intended before the law. So this is a part of the covenant, right? This is a part of what they did. This was a part of their custom. That they did this before the law was given. Just like we see in Genesis 2 that Yah did the Sabbath. In the law, he did it before the law was established, to where you think that the law is done away with. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, Where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. See, when you read that story, you're so focused on Sodom and Gomorrah. You're focused on the men at the door surrounding the house and what their intentions were. A lot of these hidden gems are exactly what they are. They're hidden gems inside of a story. And we're so focused on the story that we're not even considering the diamond in the wall. I didn't. Maybe you did. Let's go to Genesis 22. Genesis 22:16. And it reads, And said, By himself I have sworn, said Adonai, for because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heavens, and as the sand which is upon the seashore, and thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. You see, because you're listening to me, because you're obeying, because you're not questioning what I'm saying. Last week we read where he separated these two promises. But today we're reading in 22 and 17. He's saying in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven. He said that, and it was a separated statement. And then he says, as the sand which is upon the seashore, and thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. So earlier last week, he said that your descendants will be like the sand, and your descendants will be like the stars. But this time he's saying again, together, that his descendants are going to be like the sand and like the stars. That's how many they want to be. But the world today is trying to depopularize. That's a word. They're trying to depopularize the people to control them better. But God says multiply and replenish. 18, 22:18, and in thy seed my voice. Simply by obeying my voice, simply doing Genesis 12, Genesis 15, you're going to have so many descendants. Just off of that, just off of when I'm telling you to do something, you do it. I tell Noah how big to make an ark, he does it. I tell Abraham to leave his family and his parents in his country, he does it. I tell him to sacrifice Isaac, he does it. Everything I tell him to do, he does it. And don't it say in the New Testament, you say, Lord, Lord, but you do nothing that I say? But in this day and age, even though we do nothing that he say, we are so blessed. But the world is at its worst, right? 22:20. And it came to pass after these things that it was told Abraham, saying, behold, Malchah, she hath also borne a child, born children unto thy brother Nahor. And that's just finishing up. But my main focus wanted to be on Genesis 22:18 and 22:17 and 18. Let's go to Genesis 26. Genesis 26:1. Because this was just, how come nobody, or was it not supposed to be that somebody was teaching these things? And still, it just amazes me how late in my life that I'm learning the difference between the covenant and the law. Because it's nothing that you really heard. I didn't hear anything for the most part about the covenant. It was either from like the Muslim faith, the law, or Seventh-day Adventist, the law, or it was about grace, dispensation, Christianity. And not that I ever talked to anybody in the Muslim faith, but I knew that they were always talking about abstaining from certain meats. And I always knew that Christians always talked about we're under grace. And when you think about it, what does that really mean? That in your ignorance, because Yahshua HaMashiach died on the cross, that you're covered in your mistakes, I guess. And I'm not being facetious. It's just like I'm understanding now that you go back to Genesis 12 is where Yah does his best work with you. It's showing the faith in Genesis 12 that you would have showed in the New Testament with Yahshua. So Genesis 26:1. And there was a famine in the land beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went unto Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar. And Adonai appeared unto him and said, go not down into Mizraim, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of. So Adonai just said, right, to him, to Isaac, he said in 2, he said, and Adonai appeared unto him and said, go not down into Mizraim. He's giving him an order. Don't go down there. He said, dwell in the land which I shall show thee of. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with thee. So go here, and I will be with you, and bless thee. For unto thee and unto thy seed I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swear unto Abraham thy father. Back to Genesis 12. So he's telling Isaac, don't go down to Mizraim. Don't go down to Egypt. Don't. He said, but go to the land that I will show you. And if you go to the land that I will show you, I will give you these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swear unto Abraham thy father. If you listen to me, if you obey my voice, and this is nothing deep, this is simply don't go to Mizraim, go to a land that I will show you. Nothing deep, no fast, no speaking in tongues, just obedience. Don't go there. He says, and I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and I will give unto thy seed all these countries, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. He keeps promising descendants. He keeps promising a power or a control over the other nations that will be blessed if they follow him. What is this talking about? And I will give unto thy seed all these countries, and and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. Why are they going to be blessed? Because what I'm teaching Abraham, he's going to teach Isaac. Isaac's going to teach Jacob. The nation's going to learn. The world's going to learn. Genesis 12. So look at 26:5. It says, because that Abraham, he obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. What laws at the time? Everything I said. Everything I said. He kept it. The law's not even established yet. And that's what I mean when I say the Bible uses this word laws. Could be my ignorance, could be the translators, could be the people who just decided to put it in there to throw us off. I don't know. But we know that the law is not even established yet. But he says, because Abraham obeyed my voice, like I'm telling you, don't go down to Egypt, don't go down to Mizraim, don't go down there. That's a commandment. That's a law. Because if you go there, I'm not going to do these things for you. I hope there's somebody that has an ear to hear is receiving this. So let's drop down to 21. And they digged another well and strove for that also. And he called the name of it Sitnah. And he removed from thence and digged another well. And for that they strove not. And he called the name of it Rehoboth. And he said, for now Adonai hath made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. And he went up from thence to Beersheba. 24. And Adonai appeared unto him the same night and said, I am Elohim of Abraham, thy father. Fear not, for I am with thee, and I will bless thee, and I will multiply thy seed for my servant Abraham's sake. Why not for Isaac's sake? Genesis 12. Genesis 15. Abraham is the point guard, bringing the ball down the court. Now, I don't know much about basketball, but I'm going to stop right there. Adonai is talking to Isaac about his father again. Covenant was made at that point, right? Not law. Covenant. I can't stress this enough. Covenant is made with Abraham and Elohim, right? And he built there, and he built an altar there and called upon the name of Adonai and pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants digged the well. I just wanted to point out the fact that Adonai told Isaac that if you do what your father did, if you continue to do what he did, we're going to be good. Let's go to 29:11. Genesis 29:11. And Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's brother. and that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. And it came to pass when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him into his house. And he told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, surely thou art my bone and my flesh. And he abode with him the space of a month. And Laban said unto Jacob, because thou art my brother, thou therefore serve me for naught? Tell me what thy wages would be. Now we have a difference. We have now this is do you see what I'm seeing here? This is so awesome. Laban says unto Jacob, because thou art my brother from the same nation of Israel, shouldst thou therefore serve me for nothing? Why is it saying that? Because don't we find this later in Leviticus that if you have a slave, he's not really a slave, that if your brother falls on hard times, that you can't beat him. And if you knock out his tooth or his eye, you have to set him free. And that he's not your slave, that he has to be paid. And when you're honoring the Sabbath, he's honoring the Sabbath, that he's not working when you're not, that you're not to abuse your brother like Israel is going to abuse you. Not Israel, Egypt, Mizraim is going to abuse you when your people, your descendants go there. In the law, you can't abuse your slave because he's not really a slave, he's a servant. And after 7 years, you have to set him free for the year of Jubilee. It's like, no, 50. Pentecost. You have to set him free. In 50 years, depending on the time, you have to set him free. He's not your slave forever. So it's not like slaves in America that were mistreated and beaten and killed. You have to honor this person. That's why Laban said to Isaac, you can't work for me for nothing. I have to give you something. So that is something that he's honoring in Genesis that was later established in Leviticus because they already knew this. So even though it's a law, it's not something that's involving the Levitical priesthood, and it's not a punishment. It coincides with the commandments of how to treat your neighbor. And in the process of treating your neighbor well, you're honoring Yah. Am I confusing anybody, or is anybody understanding this? This is all Yah wants, is for us to be able to treat everybody with respect. In the Ten Commandments, the first two is loving Yah with all your heart, soul, and mind. And the other 8 is loving your neighbor. That's why if he said, if you do the first 2 and honoring me, the other 10 are going to be automatic. Automatic. But what are we going through in 2023? Black community is rising against the white community. Russia, China, Africa, United States, all at odds with each other. Ukraine. This is opposite of what Yah is asking for and commanded. But it's the best we can do under man's power, because without Yah, we don't have the ability to keep strong on his word. Number one, we don't have the desire, because we think because we go to college and we come out with a master's degree or any other type of degree, that we can now overstep his word and we can come up with a plan. Just like we talked about last week with our food. Some genius says, even though Yah made this way, I can go into the seed and manipulate it and change it and make it better. The soil, make it better. The water, I can make it better. But you're really killing us. Boy, how we get there. Okay, let's go to 15, 29:15. And Laban said unto Jacob, because thou art my brother, shouldst thou therefore serve me for naught? Tell me, what shall thy wages be? And Laban had two daughters, and the name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. And Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. And Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve thee, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. So, so Jacob is saying to Laban, listen, I know that Leah is your oldest daughter, but I'm kind of digging Rachel. And I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll serve her 7 years to marry her. And Laban must have said, okay, 7 years, you got it. It's a deal. There was a covenant between them two. There was an oath and a swearing between those two. And there's another point. In the law, your oath is to be kept no matter what happens in the nation of Israel. Right? And what happens later on in the story? And Laban said, it is better that I give her to thee than that I should give her to another man. Abide with me. Stay with me. Yeah, work with me for 7 years and I'll give you Rachel. He just said that he would do it. And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days, for the love that he had for her. What happens later? Even though he served Laban for 7 years, Laban tricked him and gave him Leah. And guess what Jacob did? Jacob didn't say, "Well, that's not fair. Blah blah blah. I'm not doing this. I want a divorce." He actually took Leah on, and then he served another 7 years. You can't break your oath. You can't. That's why the Bible says, say either yes or no and stick to it. No, I can't. I'm not going to show up. Well, yeah, I'll be right there. And actually either not show up or be right there. And that's what I wanted to point out. No Levitical priesthood involved, but the law was saying that you cannot break your oath. But they're already doing it here in Genesis 26 because they knew already. This was already explained to them at that time. It just wasn't explained to us. And this is another thing that you could overlook because it's in the middle of another story. And that is it. That's it. So this is just a reminder that this podcast is also on Spotify, on Instagram. I have a couple videos, and I'm on YouTube, which you can see as well. So don't forget to like my page and to share my page where it applies. Don't forget to hit the notification buttons, and don't forget to subscribe as well. And I hope that you continue to have a blessed Sabbath. And I pray to you. I pray that Yah continues to bless your household. Shalom.